Maria. She's an American. She's married to her husband, Juan, who's an undocumented immigrant. Like all couples do from time to time, Maria and Juan squabble. But their fights, those quickly end when Maria reminds Juan that ICE is just a phone call away, and that after he's deported, he'll never see her or their kids again. In the past 2 years alone, USCIS, the government agency that grants green cards in our country, has reported that there are more than 24,000 undocumented immigrants like Juan who've reached out to our government for help because they're being abused at home by their American spouse. This data corresponds with my 10 years of experience as an immigration lawyer. 7 out of 10 of my undocumented clients have confided in me that, like Juan, they're being abused at home by their American spouse. Like you, when I first learned about this, I was shocked. But as all lawyers do, I went to the statute to try to figure out how was this happening. And there it was, baked into the statute, the requirement that the American file the petition for the immigrant. And that's when it all made sense, you see. If Maria doesn't file a petition for Juan, he's not getting his papers, and they both know it. As you can see, our immigration laws encourage this type of domestic abuse in mixed status families. If, however, we were to change the law, we could eliminate it. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that when we talk about immigration reform, it seems like this daunting task. But I assure you, there is a simple solution for a pervasive problem, a solution that's supportive of immigrants and Americans, a solution that's more in alignment with our American values. I call it the right to self-petition. Now, when we think about immigration reform, it feels like we gotta scrap the whole thing and start all over. But what I wanna talk to you about today is a very simple, small thing. You see, ordinarily, an undocumented person like Juan, he can't petition for himself. Instead, as we see, he has to rely on an American family member to initiate the process. But Juan and Maria's real-life story illustrates how our laws give all the power over the immigrant's ability to be here legally to someone else, the American. Now, not every mixed status marriage is abusive like Juan and Maria's. But we all know that anytime in a relationship you give the power over the partner to one person, we know that there's a recipe for abuse and that things can go sideways. I want to share a story with you about that from my client Sarah's life. Sarah was a young girl in Mexico, 15 years old, and she had to drop out of school because she had a baby. While she was working in a resort town, she met an American man. They fell in love, and he married her and said, "Come with me, come with your son to the United States, where we're gonna build a good life together. I'll petition for you, and someday you'll even be a US citizen." She got to the United States and found something different. She found herself cooking, cleaning, and enduring her new American husband's rapes in exchange for food, shelter, and the promise not to call ICE on her. You see, Sarah's biggest fear was that she would get deported and be permanently separated from her son. And so Sarah stayed. That was 22 years ago. And her husband still has not petitioned for her. Another example of this comes from my client, Carlos. Carlos is married to Julia, who's an American. Together they have 3 little American kids. Julia worries constantly that Carlos is going to be deported. He's here illegally. This makes her hypervigilant, controlling, and resentful that this is the life that she has to live. She monitors Carlos's cell phone location to make sure he only goes to places that she allows him to go. She doesn't let him put his name on any of the key documents, like the bank statement, the bank account, their apartment lease. She says this is because she wants to protect him. She doesn't want ICE to find out that he's here, when in reality, this is just part of the control that she has over every aspect of her husband's life. The worst, though, has to be the cash counting. You see, because Carlos, he doesn't have a work permit, so he gets jobs by standing outside Home Depot. It's day labor jobs, and they pay in cash. So when he gets home every night, Julia requires him to hand her the money, and in front of him, she counts it. And if he doesn't bring home enough money that day, she doesn't let him eat. Carlos loves Julia. He loves his kids. He hates that this is the life that he's giving them. So he hands over the cash, and he hangs on to the hope that someday she'll make good on her promise and finally petition for him so he can get his papers. Now, the abuse of the immigration process that I'm describing here, it's not unique to Americans to their undocumented spouse. It also happens from American sons and daughters to their undocumented parents, and the pain it causes reverberates throughout the family. Take my young client's daughter, Laura. Laura's a 12-year-old American girl who's coming of age. The thing she wants to do next in life is learn how to ride her bike to school by herself. But something else preoccupies Laura. Laura's older brother. She's watched him, who's also an American, throw their undocumented dad against the wall in their home and then turn to mom and say, "What are you gonna do? Call the police? They're just gonna find two illegals here." Laura has depression, debilitating anxiety. She has a lot of trouble concentrating in school when she's sitting next to your son and my daughter. Laura's had to learn from a young age that the people who she ought to be able to trust on the outside are not safe, and neither are the people on the inside of her home. This type of instability is traumatizing. Our laws, our system facilitates this. Now, you may wonder why. Why is it like this? And if this is the consequence of our laws, surely there must be a good reason for why we haven't changed them. To explain that, let me take you back to the 1800s just for a moment. This was the time when our immigration laws were designed, what's still followed today. And the social norm at the time was that women were regarded as the property of their husband. And so it makes sense when we look at our structure for immigration laws today that, of course, the American husband would petition for his foreign wife. And today, that's continued. The American petitions for the immigrant. But the thing that's also continued is that the immigrant is still essentially treated like the property of the American family member. Folks, there's no good reason for continuing this process. Let me tell you a couple reasons why. First of all, if we change things and we were to allow for immigrants to petition for themselves, we're not going to see an increase in fraudulent marriages. USCIS already has a system for independently verifying the authenticity of marriages, totally separate from the Americans' involvement. We're also not going to see an increase of people being a burden on society. Immigrants petitioning for themselves will help reduce that, in fact, because our existing system forces more people below the poverty line and in need of social services. People like Sarah, who don't have a social security number and they can't get a driver's license. And so when they do drive, they're driving without car insurance. The millions of people like Carlos, who are the breadwinners of their family, but because they don't have work authorization, they have to work twice as hard for half the pay. And you know who pays the ultimate price for all of this if we don't change things? It's not the taxpayer. It's not the church. It's not schools. In fact, it's not our government. The person who pays the price for this is the millions and millions and millions of American children of undocumented immigrants. They're who pay the price for this. Laura pays the price for this. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's time for a change. And it's up to us, the American voter, because we hold the key to change. Laura can't change anything. Laura's older brother's making sure that mom and dad can't change anything. But me and you, we can. We can take a stand against domestic abuse in our laws, whether it's in an immigrant's home or whether it's in an American's home or whether it's in a mixed status home. We can take a stand against all domestic abuse. And when it's codified in our statutes, we can change that. So the first thing you have to do if you want to get on board with this is make that decision that I stand against domestic abuse in the United States. And the next thing you do is you shop wisely. Because when you go to the ballot box, you're looking for a governor, a senator, or two, and a president who's committed to making simple changes. We don't have to scrap the whole thing to make a simple change, like the right to self-petition. Guys, if we do this, imagine the ripple that we can make. Imagine what it's going to be like for Laura to ride her bike home from school all by herself one day, and for her to open the door to her home. And because of you, there's no more nuclear option of her American family member threatening to call ICE on her parents. I believe that our children deserve that kind of security. I believe that the United States of America promises it, and it's up to us to provide it. Thank you.